Now look, I know that the Terran player featured in this video was already featured in the previous pro game that I uploaded to this YouTube channel as well. I usually try to avoid that, however the thing is, in that previous video I also asked you to comment below what pro gamer you would like me to cast a little bit more often. And the most upvoted comment by far was indeed the professional gamer spawning here in the top left hand corner of Catalyst LE. She's playing with the beautiful pink Zerg drones, one of my personal favorite pro gamers of all time. Of course, I am talking about none other than Scarlett. And her opponent spawning in the bottom right hand corner of the map. I mean, speaking of some of my favorite professionals, I mean, there is no denying that this man right here is an absolute legend already. I mean, if we're ever gonna have a book, right, with most influential pro gamers in StarCraft 2 of all time, I think that indeed this man right here will be on page number 1. Because spawning here in the bottom right hand corner and playing with the blue SCVs, of course, we have none other than Innovation. Now, Innovation, I mean, I mentioned this several times already, but he has won a premier event in every single year of his pro gaming career since like 2012 or 2013. Usually we see pro gamers dominate for a short amount of time. Some even win like 1 or 2 tournaments and then they just sort of, you know, start going into a bit of a slump. Innovation, he's been on the top of the game for years and years and years. And whenever there's like major balance changes that happen, he's gonna be a little bit weaker just because it takes him some time to flush out all of the details. But he always comes back and he always looks really strong. Like even right now in 2018, he doesn't show any signs of slowing down whatsoever. Easily one of the best Terran players on the planet right now. Now, Scarlett, of course, she's been around for years as well, and actually just a couple of months ago, I think this was either in February or in March, I'm not entirely sure, but she ended up winning IEM Pyeongchang for $50,000 as, of course, a first place prize. Definitely a very difficult tournament to win, and she definitely does look like she is in shape as well. For actually a while, she was very well known for her creep spread. This was like, I think like 2014 or 2015 or something when creep spread really started to become lots more of a focus for Zerg. Before that, it wasn't very common whatsoever. Scarlett was one of the first players to really start focusing on that, and usually she does seem to have a really good grasp of where the meta is gonna go. Anyway, first Reaper has now arrived on the other side of the map. The single drone there did sneak out towards the third base location. Immediately though, a Spore Crawler does get morphed in on that weakened drone here as well, and the Reaper, he wants to try and actually deny this base from going up. Scarlett, oh no way! Alright, Scarlett actually did get that hatchery up. That's a big deal. Innovation knows the timing when that usually should go up. He was just a split second late, and ooh, another small mistake there. That Reaper did end up dying trying to snipe that creep tumor. Now, I do think that's actually a worthwhile trade. If you were to get the creep tumor, all of a sudden, you know, Terran is going to be in a really nice advantage because that first tumor, of course, really starts accelerating the longer that this game goes on. It's really critical that you keep the first couple alive. And obviously, Reapers do sort of fall off as soon as link speed finishes, which is going to be the case in just a couple of seconds. Innovation now, though, following it up with that 1-1-1 style, but not before getting that third command center already started as well. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. And the Zerglings, apparently, they're gonna hide off to the side here, probably waiting for, indeed, these Hellions to start moving across the map. More Hellions, though, just about to finish. And actually, oh, I love this. Look at that. That is one of these really minor things that Innovation does, right? So he's got that one Marine that he made early on, because that's the safest way to open after a Reaper if you skip out the SCV Scout. However, rather than sending out both of the Hellions, right? He decided to only send out one of the Hellions, do a little bit of scouting with that one, and then leave the other one at home to defend against these 4 Zerglings. Because the 4 Zerglings are perfectly capable of killing one Marine. They're not as good against, obviously, those Hellions, though. So it's these little tiny things that really do make Innovation a very, very strong Terran player, because he doesn't really mess around. Like, he just makes a lot of units and then he wins. That seems to be the case in most of these matches. Innovation, though, now transitioning towards that bio-based style. Terran can now go ahead and play either bio or mech these days. That seems to be, you know, the most common strategy. But so far, it really does look like Innovation plans on playing that biological-based army. So Marines, Marauders, and probably some Medivacs here as well. It's perfectly scouted, though, by Scarlett. And Scarlett, while indeed her opponent has got a quick third base, obviously, Scarlett already has been droning up that third hatchery for a little while. I always like seeing this. Remember that cast that I did recently? I think it was Serral versus Gumiho? I'm not entirely sure actually who the Terran player was. But regardless, oh no, it was actually Serral versus Hero Marine. Serral opened up with a Baneling Nest first while going for Lair. Then he got centrifugal hooks very, very quickly. And then when he was at Lair, he started up upgrading his Zerglings and his Banelings and whatnot as well with these melee and carapace upgrades. It's a subtle difference. It does mean that Scarlett is going to have a slower centrifugal hooks, but a faster double upgrade started on all of those units. It's pretty interesting to see how players decide to get to that mid game. I wouldn't be surprised though if Scarlett is still going to go Hydraling Bane just because it is extremely potent. But it's interesting to see the different pro gamers at around the same skill level all get to a similar mid game in a very different way. Anyway, Hydralisk then is indeed going to come up here. Baneling Nest will finish up shortly. So Scarlett is going to have the Baneling speed a little bit slower, but she's going to have the Hydra Den a little bit faster, and with that the double upgrades as well. Fourth base now coming up for our Zerg player. Scarlett actually already sitting at 76 drones. That's really sick. Usually players try to sit on maybe like 66 to 70 or so and then start making a lot of army. Scarlett apparently has scouted something that makes her feel a little bit more confident to just simply make a lot more drones as well. It must have been the fact that that orbital command was scouted super early here as well. And speaking of which, Innovation is now sitting very nicely on a very strong economy already. Doesn't look like Zerg is going to try and really bother with her opponents so far just yet. Innovation are finally sending out these Hellions on a bit of a task as well. Apparently the only thing though they really got done is their sniping of that single tumor. At the same time though, double Medevacs did now indeed unload all of their units towards the top right hand corner, and that does mean that now Scarlett is forced to deal with a bunch of those units. Zerglings alone are probably not going to cut it, although they do have some decent upgrades already, and obviously that does mean that now with the Hydralisk showing up, Innovation has got enough. Hellions now though, in the meantime, riding towards that natural location. They already got a couple of drone kills there for their troubles. Nothing all too crazy just yet. It almost looked as if two more would end up dying there, but Scarlett did manage to deflect that army with relative ease. Hive now already coming up once again. The Marines unloaded here in the top right-hand corner. Scarlett not really going for any Banelings whatsoever, really just focusing all her gas on the simply Hydralisks and a bunch of upgrades as well, and obviously the tech up towards the Hive. It always feels a little bit more risky to skip out Banelings for this very long. Is Centrifugal Hooks already done? Yeah, Centrifugal Hooks for the Baneling speed upgrade has already finished. In the meantime though, on the other side of the map, we now see Innovation transitioning towards his own +2/+2 upgrades as well. Very quick, considering the fact that, of course, he did go for that very fast third command center as well, and now already going towards a fourth CC here too. So both players sort of giving each other that respect, giving each other that wiggle room to just make whatever they want, and then eventually they will clash. Now, usually, right, in these kind of games, I'm gonna have to give Innovation the advantage. Just because this is where Innovation shines. This is almost you playing into his arms, right? Because he's really, really good at playing that macro-focused style. Curious to see how Scarlett is going to follow this up and if she's got any tricks up her sleeve. Already actually going for that Lurker Den right now. Very interesting. Medevacs now though, unloading Marines here in the top left-hand corner of the map. They're going to be able to deal at least a little bit of damage. Still, really no Banelings here whatsoever for our Zerg player. Just relying on Zerglings and Hydras. It's almost as if we're watching Brood War at this point, right? Just a bunch of Zerglings and Hydras. Now, Adrenal Glands will also be started up already at the 8-minute mark. So these Hive upgrades are really going to become really important. But I'm curious to see what Scarlett is going to do here with the Lurker Den. So here's the thing. In just a couple of days from now, I think it's actually tomorrow or the day after, if you're watching this the day the video goes up. But very soon, Ultralisks are effectively getting a nerf as Marauders are getting a buff against armored units. I wonder if that means that maybe Lurkers are going to become a little bit more potent. Lurkers, of course, extremely common against Protoss in particular. Hydra Lurker, you know, absolutely the standard in that matchup. I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, though, against Terran, because I haven't seen anyone play Lurkers in recent times against Terran Bio in particular. I'm curious to see how she's going to make use of this. Anyway, Lurker Den will finish up in just a little bit in before she doesn't make any Lurkers whatsoever, and I'm just getting really hyped up about a whole lot of nothing. Once again, though, this Medevac now moving towards the top left-hand corner. The Zerg army is caught off guard. There are still a couple of units, though, ready to defend against this, and now with the majority of the reinforcements coming up here as well, Scarlett should be able to defend against this relatively easily as well. That one Hydra picking up kill after kill after kill here. Another base now, though, will be secured by Innovation. Rather than going for the middle expansion, apparently he has decided to go for the one that's a little bit more tucked away. He did not scout the Lurker then. Maybe that's the idea, right? If he, oh, well, hold that thought, actually, because the Banelings are now once again rolling forward, trying to connect with as many of those siege tanks as possible. That is not a position you want to push in if you are a Zerg player. Great positioning there by Innovation, really deflecting that Zerg army with ease. Those Banelings did absolutely nothing, and the Hydras got shredded. And apparently that immediately means that Innovation is now going to go for the counterattack, and this could actually be game over very easily. A couple of Vipers now even coming up, actually, for Scarlett as well, really delaying the Ultralisks here substantially. I don't even know if she plans on switching towards them. I was thinking maybe the Lurkers were going to be good if you want to siege towards this location here in the middle of the map. Obviously, there's a lot of potency with those units, in particular with like slow pushing and whatnot. Regardless, though, it doesn't really matter because all of a sudden, right, this Terran army has arrived on the creep. It's moving extremely deep at this point, though, and obviously those Vipers are going to now accumulate energy. A couple of Blinding Clouds could really hurt, or maybe a couple of Yanks even on this army could definitely change the tide of battle. Here we go. Once again, the Zerg army is advancing. Blinding Cloud going down on all of those siege tanks, or at the very least on the 4 here near the front. Another Blinding Cloud will be renewed there, so that does mean that these tanks will not be able to fire for that much longer, and with only 2 siege tanks really being part of the equation there, Zerg somehow, some way seems to clean this one up. That was very, very close. That could have definitely gone in favor of Terran there. I feel like if Innovation would have spread out the siege tanks a little bit more, he would have been in a much better position. Innovation, though, getting a little bit greedy there, moving that deep onto the creep without really destroying any of the creep tumors either. And apparently that means that now Scarlett is indeed going to start up the Digging Claws upgrade. The, what is it called? Advanced Talents? Something like that. They've renamed this upgrade a couple of times. But basically, it's a speed upgrade for the Lurker Burrow. So no Ultralisks. No Ultralisks. Actually, the Ultras sort of seem to be replaced by Lurkers here. And this is before the patch goes live. Very curious to see how this is going to play out. I secretly hope, right? And this is like the Zerg in me talking, I suppose. But I secretly hope that she's going to use like that hold fire button to let the Lurkers just sort of sit there. And then as soon as the bio army walks over it, and there we go. As soon as the bio army walks over it, she's going to activate the ability, and all of a sudden the Terran bio melts. Then again, the couple of times where I have seen this come into play, it seems like Terran was just simply walking over the Zerg, because they would start dropping relentlessly. Now, that's exactly what Innovation has already started up. Still, Scarlett has now secured another base here as well. Basically, oh my god, nicely done there, actually, getting the yank there on that medevac. But she's basically now taken every base on her side of the map. At the same time, though, a stim forward there will get rid of a couple of the tumors here in the middle of the map. Lurkers now will be scouted as well, though, for this Terran. Very low amount of Banelings here in general, right? Not a lot of Banes. Usually you would expect quite a couple more at this level of play, but instead, Scarlett has decided to go for more and more Lurkers. Look at that. So interesting. Lurkers versus Terran bio. Not something you would usually do, but the thing is, obviously, when you do get a suitable amount, they should really be capable of absolutely shredding through everything. Banelings now also coming up. So it's like a Hydralisk Bane, Lurker Viper army. Very interested indeed how this is going to play out. Medevacs, though, once again, moving here on the left-hand side of the map, but here we go. Lurkers do not have their speedy burrow upgrade, so that means they're going to be able to get under that underneath that Terran bio army very, very easily. More and more Lurkers are going to continuously move forward. Blinding Clouds going down on the most of those siege tanks as well. Now a couple of Yanks will also pull these units out of position, really getting a lot of value on this army already. 2 planetary fortresses, though. Obviously, these Lurkers here will take damage now that the missile turrets are indeed confirming the location of these Lurkers as well. 3 medevacs now full of units landing over at that newly acquired base here of the Zerg player, but the Lurkers do make short work of that single planetary fortress. One of the Lurkers here on the right hand side of the map will be picked off as well, whereas the bio army now got one of those bases for practically free. So an eye for an eye, right? Still, oh my god, gotta be careful that, okay, there's actually no energy right there on that Viper. I was gonna say, if the Yanks do come into play and the Hydras pick up the medevacs, that could become a massive deal. Viper's now picked off for practically free here as well, and once again, the units will be loaded up into the medevac, and Innovation will be able to escape with the majority of his units. Very cool though. I love this Lurker style, not gonna lie. That's so awesome to see. Massive Viper switch, or rather Raven switch right now, coming up here for innovation. The anti-armor missile, of course, very, very potent. It does take a little bit of time for the units to accumulate that energy. Base will be picked off here as well, and at the same time, double medevacs now also picked up once again, or at least the units that were inside of that medevac will be picked off once more for relatively free. Lurkers now burrowing close towards this newly acquired command center. There's no more detection available here actually for innovation, so that does mean that these Lurkers will be able to get rid of that base very, very quickly. Medevacs now dropping off in the top left-hand corner of the map, but they are getting rid of very, very easily, and apparently, innovation decides to leave the game. Looks like innovation wasn't particularly happy at being in that game there. Obviously, if you get rid of the detection, right, on those planetary fortresses, Lurkers are going to be able to make short work of them within just a couple of seconds. I'm kind of tempted to even say that Scarlett could go ahead and, like, put one Lurker over here, or, like, two Lurkers over here, and then two in the top left-hand corner. Sort of like what you do against Protoss when they go for the offensive Zealot Warpins, right? You just leave a couple of Lurkers in the bases that you know are most vulnerable, and they're just going to be capable of picking up those units with ease. I kind of feel like it would be similar against Marines, right? Like, what are two Lurkers, or what are a bunch of Marines going to do against two Lurkers, right? If two Lurkers would sit right here, wouldn't they just be able to get rid of all of those unloaded units immediately? I guess Marines are a little bit more mobile, though. You could just simply move them around, right, and make sure they go out of range there of those Lurkers. But there's definitely a lot of potential. This is one of those things, one of those developments that is still most definitely ongoing in TVZ. And now with that buff to the Marauder, right? Well, technically speaking, that would also mean that Lurkers are going to be a little bit weaker, I suppose, just because obviously Marauders are quite a bit more tanky. But anyways, now that the Marauder is once again going to be a bit of a force to be reckoned with, and effectively increasing the amount of counters that Terran does have against Ultralisks, maybe this is something to start looking into as well. So Lurkers with, of course, the Vipers for support as well. Another thing you can do if you're Zerg is just simply blinding cloud all of the siege tanks, then move the Lurkers forward and burrow them right next to them, which obviously could do a huge amount of damage, because usually it's indeed the siege tanks that are easily dealing with these units, and if you take them out of the equation, I guess there's a lot of potency over there too. Then again, microing Hydraling Bane, Lurker, and Viper, definitely not the easiest thing to do, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting where the next couple of months of Terran versus Zerg take us. By the way, for those of you also curious, what a Marauder is indeed getting buffed up a little bit, so is the Viking. The Viking is going to have 10 additional hit points. However, the one nerf that is definitely going to hurt Terran is the fact that the anti-armor missile will go down from dealing 30 damage per missile to only 15. So that does mean that you're gonna be in a bit of a troubling position in the ultra late game of TVZ, but I think the mid game of Terran is gonna be quite a bit stronger. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna play out, but it does look like there is the potency for Lurkers to become a standard unit in the TVZ matchup. I hope though that you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next one.